Father God, I thank you so much for Caleb. And thank you for bringing him here tonight, giving us a chance to, Lord, just learn from your word. And, Lord, to learn from just, Lord, his experiences in this area. And so, Lord, I pray for us. Pray, Lord, that no matter where we come into this class tonight with our thoughts and our views on money, Lord, that you would help us to hold on loosely to that. Lord, that you'd help us to, Lord, just realize this is yours. And we're stewards of what you entrust to us. And so, Father, use tonight to just radically, transform our thoughts toward money. Or, Lord, just remind us that we need to keep going in the way that we're stewarding that well. And so, Lord, we love you. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. Thanks, buddy.
All right, well, good evening. Am I on? Yes, great. Good evening. So my name's Caleb Dean. I'm married to my lovely wife, Sally. We have a picture. She is absolutely gorgeous to me. And I think that she's the most beautiful girl in the world. And we've been married for 8 years. She has to put up with me, and you'll get to hear some more stories about why that's a big deal. You may think tonight, I want to meet this guy, I want to get his autograph after, all this stuff, take selfies, pictures, whatever that is, do a dub smash. But she has to deal with me on an ongoing basis. 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, 21 months, we adopted a set of twins, our sweet boy and girl. And you guys, I'm excited to be here, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'd much rather be at home reading a bedtime story to my kiddos right now, because when I go home, the sweetest noise, I'm so, I hope kids are in the picture in your future for you all, because I go home and my kids run to me and they say, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and they throw their arms around me, and it is it is the sweetest thing. But anyway, so Ezra and Remy. Remy was first. Ezra was polite and let Remy come out first. This is our Halloween costumes. And so we are their caretakers, and they're the elderly. So there you go. All right. So anyways, the topic of finances, so a little bit about myself is I used to be on staff here at Watermark Community Church. I was overseeing the finance operation here. And then I left Watermark to go back into the private sector. And then after that, I came back out, and I'm working for another company called RT Creative Group, where we produce media for churches. And I love it. I have a great team, and my role is to be overseeing finance and operations for an organization. But using the term, as Lance said, finance guru would be overrating me significantly. I'm just going to talk about some financial basics tonight, and really financial basics that I think it's important, whether you guys move forward in a relationship or not, get right. Because if you don't get it right, there's going to be a lot of destruction later on in your life for not practicing some of these basics. And so what I want to start with is, why do I think it's important? So for those of you who visit the periodical section of the store, you usually see Us Weekly and People Magazine. And what should be on the shelves is the Journal of Accountancy. It is a great read. Any accountants would agree with that. And so the Journal of Accountancy is one of my favorite leisurely readings. And so in 2012, they did a survey on the topic of finances and what causes the most rifts in relationships. And what they found out was, or actually just what causes rifts in relationships. And what they found out was that, number one, even before sex, was finances. Finances was the number one topic that caused all of this tension in relationships. And you thought, well, that's so 2012. I mean, we're in 2016. It's a new age. We're so tolerant and all these things. So that can't be the issue even nowadays. All right, well, so fast forward 2 years, 2014, Experian. I'm sure you guys follow them on Twitter or Facebook or social media. It's a credit bureau, and it's great. You should check out their posts all the time, right? And so Experian released a survey in 2014, and what they found out was, guess what? Finances is still the number one topic of tension in relationships. All right, well, that's 2014. All right, well, I was reading, again, the Journal of Accountancy, and the April 2016 edition, hot off the presses, right? Talking about lease accounting. So boring for you guys, but it's just candy to me, was that on the first page, you flip it over, and it's a by the number section. And at the bottom right, as it says, 88% of millennials argue about finances in their relationships. All right, so then you think, well, that's millennials, I'm Gen X, etc. Great. All right, well, so Gen X, what we found out in 2014, or actually 2015 by USA Today doing a survey, was that Gen X is the most indebted generation yet. So if you follow the baby boomers and all the other generations, so Gen X, so there you go. So then you're thinking, well, hey, that's still a little bit too young for me. Well, what they found out in these surveys is that as you get older, that the topic of finance doesn't go away in relationships. The tension doesn't go away. Instead, it increases. And so for those of you who watch PBS, which I'm sure many of you do, there's a show called Affluenza. And Affluenza was so popular that they discontinued it. And so in that show, they found out, they were analyzing all these divorce cases, and they were thinking, well, why are these people getting a divorce? What is the reason for the divorces? And of 90% of the couples, the number one issue that they were arguing was the use of finances in relationship. Kind of a big deal, right? And so tonight, what we just want to talk about is the topic of finances, the basics of finances, and the Bible has a lot to say about it. We're going to hit on some verses that I think you guys should write down or at least memorize and study for yourselves. I'll give some other verses as we talk, but it is super important. So we'll move on to topic number one, or point number one, and that is always communicate. So it's really hard for the two to become one, that's Matthew 19:6, if you're not communicating. So if I don't communicate with my partner right now, then it's very difficult for me to even feel like we're connecting on the same page. And so one of the questions that we asked in a survey was, hey, when I'm feeling down, I like to go buy stuff. I want to go buy something. Do you think that's something really important to communicate in a relationship? Right? You come home from a hard day. It's so tough. And you just walk in the door and you go, sweetheart, it's been a hard day, but just let me tell you something. Remember that lake house that we've always wanted? Bought it today. So everything is going to get better now, right? You have to communicate. So what are the things that you should be talking about? Number one is talk about your past, because your past influences how you view the topic of finances. So my grandmother grew up in the Depression, the Great Depression, and that has shaped how she views finances. How she saves, she never spends, and all of this, and that influences her. My parents, baby boomers, they view it very differently than my grandmother. And so there was, hey, let's just go ahead, let's go get it. We expect our income to increase, therefore let's go ahead and do it. And so I had these two different perspectives coming at me, and so which one do I go after? I don't know. But it affected me in how I viewed the topic of finances. Number two is talking about the present. How do you view resources today? How do you use finances today? Extremely important. Again, right? If you feel down and you go out and buy something, that should be something you talk about. And so again, it's really hard for the two to become one if they're not communicating. And the other thing to talk about on this is it is not a dictatorship. So it is not something that one party says this is how it goes. I am the chief sinner of everybody in this room on how marriage started off on the wrong foot with me telling my wife, this is our budget, this is how we will live, and this is what we're going to do. Any questions? None? Good. We're moving forward. Man, I tell you what, you saw the picture of my wife. She's beautiful. Why did she stay with me? Because she believed in me. She forgave me. She had long suffering, full of grace. Full of grace. But again, we had to communicate. We had to work through this. And so it's not me saying this is how it's done. It's us coming together to decide what works best for us. But until that day, guys, until you've tied the knot here, it is not a you together couple having conversation like, hey, how are we going to use resources together right now? They talked about it in Merge. I know they said that we shouldn't be merging bank accounts right now, but they said, let's talk about finances. No, what you need to be talking about is really the past and the present. How do you view finances today? We'll get into more nitty-gritty as we move forward. All right, so point number 2, surround yourself with trusted advisors. All right, so without counsel, plans fail. This is Proverbs 15:22. But with many advisors, they succeed. Proverbs 12:15. The way of a fool seems right to him, but a wise man listens to advice. And so one of the questions that we asked, or the survey questions, was, hey, do you regularly ask advice of people around you, of peers, or of someone around you on how you should be managing money? And so 20% of you said, yes, I do. And then 80% said no. And I fell into this 80% bucket. All right, so for those of you who are the majority right now, you're not alone. I fell into that bucket because I thought for me, hey, I'm a CPA. I have these certifications behind my name. I've got trained in this. People are asking my advice and opinion on this. Who are you to tell me how to be using resources? So I came at it from a very self-righteous perspective, an all-knowing perspective, and God humbled me significantly. But on the other side of that is it's really easy for us to get into groupthink. So you take the principle 1 of the two become one. All right, so it's easy to think, all right, now we're on the same team. It's groupthink mentality. And I think I should be a salesman at some times because I have the gift of woo and a great sense of humor. And so as a result, my wife, I can convince her of anything from, hey, we should go do this. This is the best use of resources. Don't you agree? Here's the whole 12-point plan for it. To where she's like, okay, sounds great. But if I don't have counselors around me telling me that that's an idiotic plan or asking questions, trying to poke holes into it, then I'm going to make poor decisions. Anybody heard of Peanut the Dark Blue Elephant? You guys don't watch PBS, and this is crazy. So Peanut the Dark Blue Elephant, I invested in a fad, and that was Thai Beanie Babies. All right, so credibility decreases right now, but now, Peanut the Dark Blue Elephant was sold on eBay for $3,005. I was greedy because I had these Beanie Babies thinking, well, I'm gonna sell it at the top of the market, and the market's going to continue to increase. And I'm going to pay for my college, I'm going to pay for my car, all of these things. I was a little kid, by the way. My mom said, I don't think it's wise that you use resources this way, but here's my credit card if you want to go do it, like a loving parent would. And so I went out, and I just racked up Beanie Baby debt, seriously. And so my parents, they were great. They taught me a great lesson, all right? Taught me a great lesson, so don't report them. They're great parents. But nonetheless, I was so greedy thinking, well, I'm just going to sell it at the top of the market. The market bust. And now my kids have over 200 Beanie Babies that they play with. They love it, all right? We've made these Wubbanubs for them that my wife has done. It's been great. So Google Wubbanub if you want to know what it is. It's a pacifier holder. But anyways, nonetheless, we use that, okay? We use that. And so just get trusted advisors around you. All right, number 3 is know all the facts. It's really hard for you to make good decisions if you don't know all the facts. Right? And so if you are out about to throw a dinner party or you're trying to have somebody over for coffee, right? It's really bad. They show up and then you go to make coffee and you're out of coffee. Well, shouldn't you have known that in advance? You said, hey, here's what we want to do as a family. Here's what we want to do to love others, but we don't have all the facts. And so an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. Proverbs 18:15. And then Proverbs 27:23 through 24. Be sure to know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds, for riches don't endure forever, and a crown is not secure for all generations. And so what should you gather facts on? Well, before we move into that, one of the questions that we asked was, hey, each month, do you know where all the money goes because you systematically track expenses? And 63% of you said yes. When we got married, I fell in this 37%. I was in the minority category. Again, I was making decisions based on the bank balance, knowing what we had, and we weren't going into debt by any means, but just call me Mr. Scrooge, all right? It ran rampant in our marriage, and it was not a good thing. But because I didn't know all the facts in terms of where resources were going, it was really hard for us to make wise decisions as a family moving forward. And so where should you gather facts? Number one is your assets. What do you own? So for me, it was Beanie Babies, right? And it was a car, and it was a house, and all these things. So what do you own? Number two is what do you owe? The liabilities. What do you owe? So student loans, mortgage, credit card debt, car payments, Beanie Baby debt, so on and so forth. And then knowing when you're going to be done with paying off what you owe. There's a spreadsheet that we'll send out after this class, and it's called the Most Awesomest Spreadsheet, or in other words, it's the Debt Snowball Spreadsheet. Snowball method it's not anything we created, okay? But it's a snowball method. In other words, it just tells you here's the quickest way for you to pay off debt. If you start adding more to the principal balance, and if you plug in these amounts here, it will tell you when you will be debt-free. And so you can start playing with, okay, if I just put $200 here, then we'll be debt-free 5 years sooner if we start doing this. Well, that's a joy, right? That's great news. And so that's a tool that we'll send out after this. So the number three is spending. Where are resources going currently? Until you start tracking your spending, you can't make wise decisions. In other words, in MoneyWise, which is a 6-week class that we teach here at Watermark, it's on financial stewardship. We go through the basics. So here, picture 6 weeks, all right? And so we go through the basics, and what we learned in there was a lady wrote into us and said, man, before I started tracking expenses, I had no idea that I was spending $21 a day on coffee and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So they woke up in the morning, they went to Starbucks, they got their coffee, all right? That's expensive. I mean, it's not cheap, right? They went to lunch, they're like, I need coffee. You know what? They also make a PB&J, so let's get that, right? I need an afternoon pick-me-up. There's another $5 added to it. And before you knew it, she was the $21, $25, and you add that up on 20 business days a month, that's a big deal. But she didn't know because she wasn't tracking those facts. And so the last thing is knowing the why. Knowing the why. And so the reason why the why is so important is because if you don't understand the why, what is motivating you for using resources this way? What is motivating you for having these goals, these financial goals as a couple? If you don't know the why and understand the why, then it's going to lead you down a destructive path. A quick illustration of that is a friend of mine went into credit card debt. She was a single mom, went into credit card debt, $30,000 in credit card debt. Not a big deal, right? $30,000. That's easy. I'm kidding. And so $30,000, and she was barely making $30,000. And somebody was kind enough to say, you know what, you're struggling. We want to take care of your debt. And so they paid it off in full. Not joking. What happened? She went back into credit card debt. And this time, instead of it being $30,000, it was double. It was $60,000. And the friend that said, we want to help you out, didn't cover the debt this time. Instead, we want to help you and guide you through this. We want to help you understand the why. And so she got out of debt. She started making decisions, but it took her a long time. But she needed to answer the why. And so for you guys, some of the most important things, or probably the most important point tonight, is you asking yourselves the why. Why do I view resources this way? Why do I view money this way? All right, so number 4 is get a plan. Get a plan, or have a plan. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty only comes to poverty. And so an interesting fact, before we go to the survey, an interesting fact is, and this is not a, hey, here's how to build personal wealth. but it's just a statistic on a plan. On americasaves.org or americasavesweekly.org, it's a website, they did a survey and they found out, okay, of those who have a plan in place, how much do they save more to those who don't have a plan? And what they found out was those who have a plan in place save twice as much as those without a plan. That's a big deal. If you don't have a plan, it's really hard for you to make ground. But if you don't know the facts, where all resources are going, it's really hard to make ground. And so the question that we asked was, I live on a budget and compare my actual expenses to budget at least once a month. And so it's split about half and half. Again, I would have fallen in hey, I live on a budget, but I don't really track it. I just know that we're doing fine. That's not a good plan. That's a bad plan. Hear me loud and clear. Bad plan. Get a plan. And so what is a plan? Well, a simple plan that we'll go through here, and again, this is extremely basic. If you go to MoneyWise 6-week class, or if you go and take other financial classes, they'll go in more detail for you. If you end up getting married and get into foundation group, you go through MoneyWise in your foundation group, which is a community group for newly marrieds. And with that small plan, okay, give something. The number one thing I say first is give something. The reason for that is, for me, money was and still can be an idol in my life. If I don't relinquish its power by giving it away, then I let it control me more than what I should. And so giving something. Number two is get 500 to 1,000 in your checking account. It would be really nice if each month our expenses were fixed. I knew, hey, I'm paying this much money in electricity, I'm paying this much money in food, so on and so forth. But man, that is not the case. In fact, when our kids, when they were teething, and we have twins, the doctors say, hey, teething doesn't result in diarrhea and all this stuff. But for us, it seemed like it did. And so we went through 40 diapers a day for 3 days straight. So 120 diapers in 3 days. Well, do you think that was in the budget? No, it wasn't. And so as a result, this craziness of life happens. Unexpected expenses happen at times, but the fluctuation of your current living situation, summer in Texas is nice and cool, so you know that you're not going to pay a lot, and the winter in Texas is nice and warm, so you know that you're not going to pay a lot, right? Not the case. And so as a result, you have to keep the house warm, you got to keep the house cold in the summer, so on and so forth. You got to eat. And so the 500 to 1,000 is to keep you from going back into debt. So if the point of what we're trying to do is make headway, we're not trying to use credit cards to cover this. Instead, we want to make progress, 500 to 1,000. That's not your emergency savings fund. The next is pay off debt, especially credit card debt. And credit card debt, the reason why we say pay that off especially quickest is because that's usually the highest interest-bearing debt that you have. And for those who get into hey, no interest for 18 months, and then you end up missing the final payment on the 18 months, and then now you got hit with back interest, I mean, that hits a lot of people. There's a 70% conversion rate. That's all back interest. It's crazy, right? That's why they do it. They know you're going to sign up for it. And so pay off debt, especially credit card debt. The debt snowball spreadsheet that we talked about, it's a good resource for you to use. Create an emergency fund equivalent to 3 to 6 months. It's a range. Do not take this as Bible. Hey, they said get a 6-month emergency fund, therefore we're going to get 6 months, and we're going to pad that budget to where 6 months is really like a year, but we're just going to say it's 6 months. That's where you ask the why question. Why are we doing this? And knowing, hey, what works for our family. For those who are on variable pay, it's commission-based, et cetera, you may need a little bit longer than 6 months, depending on how long a sales cycle is. If those on a fixed pay have a high secure job, et cetera, you may need a little bit less. Use your judgment, use trusted counsel with you, and then start saving for the future. One of the interesting stats is we realize that debt is so normal in today's society. You're crazy if you pay cash for stuff. Like, do you not know that you can leverage this? Do you not know that, hey, you can go ahead and get this much debt to your name? Why are you doing this? And so what we wanted to do was take a survey. We throw everybody's name up there, so don't stress, but to see, hey, how much per person in this room, if we were to divide up the total debt per person and then say, here's your fair share of everybody's burden, what would that be? And this is excluding homes, $22,000, almost $23,000. So that'd be the equivalent of you as a couple walking out of here tonight with $46,000 and say, good luck. And so the hopeful message here is get a plan. Know all your facts. Ask the why question. Start communicating. How are you using your resources? Why do you value them that way? And make a plan to move forward. All right. We'll talk about resources and to use a plan later on, like what's some best solutions in the Q&A. We'll probably hit on that. All right, so the next point that we'll talk on is never compare yourself to others or advertisements or media. So never compare yourself. Man, for me, I compare myself to others, and I always find myself thinking, golly, why do I not have as much as they do? That stinks. And so anyways, one of the questions that we ask is when I compare myself to others, I often feel like I have less than others. I fall into the 72% category, and I still do today. I mean, that's this ongoing sanctification process as me, as a fellow believer, who Jesus is my Savior, but even still, I can just jump off the path and go, I deserve that. I need that. That's supposed to be mine, right? And so 28% of you, almost 30%, well done. You say that you don't. And so for me, what I had to do is expand my population that I compare myself to. But one of the verses that we go to is 1 Timothy 6. That's a great chapter, 1 Timothy 6. Also, you can write down Psalm 49 is another good one for those who struggle with comparison or of money in general. Psalm 49 and even Psalm 50. Just a great back-to-back combo from there. I just got through going through it again myself as for encouragement. 1 Timothy 6 through 8. Now there is great gain in godliness with contentment, for we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. Easy enough, right? Food and clothing. That's all I need. I should be content. Man, that is so tough. That is so tough. And so what I had to do was expand my population size because we live in southern Oklahoma, northeast Plano, but it might as well be southern Oklahoma. Because when I was making the commute to downtown Dallas before I took the job where I'm at currently, I thought, golly, these people that live 5 minutes from work, I'm jealous. I should have what they have, right? No? Nobody does that. Just me. Great. And so as a result, I was always finding myself like, I should be there. I should be driving this car. Dadgum, I drive a 2005 Ford Explorer, and it doesn't have a good sound system. I should probably get on that, right? I was finding myself having these thoughts. It's just silly. It only happens to me, but that was my problem. And so what I had to do was expand my population size. So if you go to globalrichlist.com, you can compare yourself to the world. That's good. Because if you make less than $34,000 a year, congratulations, you're in the top 5% wealthiest in the world. And that's tough to swallow because you think, well, what cost of living over here and all this stuff. Man, no, I still feel like this. No, just expand your population size. With food and clothing, with these will be content. And that's so hard. And so Philippians 4:11 and 13, one of the verses I also go to there is, hey, Paul is just saying, hey, I've learned how to live with everything and how to live with nothing, but I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I'm content in all things. And so the next one that we go to is budget money for each person to spend. I fail at this in marriage from the very beginning. So my wife, who I love, well, before I get into this story, so one of the questions that we ask is, I believe I use money on things that align to my significant other's goals. I thought the same thing too. Like I could say, yeah, absolutely. She wants me to have this nice dinner right now. Absolutely. And she wants me to have the new iPhone because, man, she wants to send me pictures of the kids. Yes, She wants me to have that, right? I can convince myself that I'm using it for her interests, like that aligns with her. But if I don't have trusted counsel around me, if I'm not asking the why, I can easily stumble down the wrong path. And so one of the verses that we have is Philippians 2:4, to help you realign. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. It's this, hey, it's not about me. It's about those around me. It's about those others around me. How am I looking out for them? And so where did this break down for me? So my wife, who is, for this time, she was feeling down and she needed to buy something, okay? So see point number one. But she loves Sonic Happy Hour. So for those of you who don't know what Sonic is, it's a drive-through like a car hop, and they have happy hour and these soft drinks, and you can have 143 million different flavors, I believe. And so my wife, her number one go-to is a Diet Dr. Pepper with vanilla, easy ice, and it's a Route 44. No big deal, right? No big deal. And so she calls me, it's a rough day, and she says, sweetheart, I love you. You're so good looking. I said, thanks, love. And she said, and it's been a rough day, and guess where I'm at? I just happen to be at Sonic. And I said, well, that's great. So can I go ahead and buy a Sonic Route 44 Diet Dr. Pepper with vanilla easy ice? And like a loving husband, I mean, it costs what, $1? $1.07. And you can't forget sales tax, people. And so I said, no, we don't have money in the budget for that. And she said, okay, I love you. And so we had the conversation later that night, but she didn't get it. She bent to my will. You're thinking, what a jerk husband, right? I know. Thank you for shaking your head. Yes, you can say that. I was a jerk, and so don't do that. But the point here is budget money to spend for one another, okay? It's not I get $500 a month and she gets $5 a month. It's not that. It's not I earn $300,000 a year and she earns $10,000 a year. Therefore, she gets only this much and I get this much. It's not that at all. There's not this, hey, equitable because she's not pulling her weight or he's not pulling his weight, therefore I get this much. That's not the case. The two become one, right? You're a partner, you're a team, you're working together. And if that's the mentality, that's not healthy. But the point is that I shouldn't have to care that my wife, if she wants to go get a second mortgage on her home to get a haircut, and for me, I go out and take out a credit card just to buy my running shoes right here. And so as a result, I'm a runner, I love it. But the point here is my wants may be more expensive one month, again, once, maybe more expensive one month to hers. And it may be vice versa. But it's not, hey, you get 50, I get 50, and this is how it is. The point is, you look for her best interest, you look for his best interest, and it's not a competition. It's not, I get this, you don't. All right, moving on. The next one is, don't let income determine your lifestyle. Don't let income determine your lifestyle. And so one of the questions that we asked was, hey, do you believe that as you get older, do you believe your income will increase? And so this is not a gotcha type question. All right, 94%, overwhelming majority, which is what we see on a consistent basis, say, yes, I believe that. That's a good thing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But we tend to make decisions based on this expectation. We tend to say, well, I know that I'll be making this in 5 years, so we should buy a house that is 15 years ahead of us because we'll be able to afford it one day. We'll be able to do that. And so we start making and presuming upon the future, making these decisions for us. And so Proverbs 30, 8 through 9 is just a good gut check for me. And it's this, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with a food that is needful for me, lest I be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name. So just basically, give me my daily bread. We go back to the Lord's Prayer that we see in the Gospels. And it's, hey, our Father, give us our daily bread. And it's give us enough today to survive. It's not give us enough. We saw in Matthew 19, the parable of the rich young ruler, who, when Jesus said, give everything. Hey, I've done all the commandments. And he said, great, now sell everything and follow me. And he walked away very distraught. And the problem for us is that we start to make decisions based on, hey, I'm going to get this inheritance, or hey, I'm going to get this job one day, or hey, I believe I'm going to get this commission because this is the year we should do this. And I've been in too many meetings counseling with people after they've made decisions, and now they're faced with tough decisions of, we can't afford it. We can't afford this lifestyle. And the number one thing that stuck out to me was when I was back in the consulting world, one of the partners that I worked with, I told him I was leaving to take a job at Watermark. And so at church, you make a ton of money. Not the case, right? And so as a result, I said, I'm going to go work for the church. And instead of saying, hey, that's the dumbest decision I've ever heard, he said, I envy you. And I said, well, hold on. You envy me? Why do you envy me? You live in the area I want to live. You drive the cars I want to drive. You go on the vacations that I wish I could go. I just saw pictures of it. I'm jealous. What do you mean you envy me? And he said, because I can't leave. I'm stuck. And I thought, you're stuck? What do you mean? He had built a machine that was unsustainable if he left his job. And so he was in a job that he hated. He was in a job that he didn't want to go to. Marriage wasn't great. Family relationships with kids wasn't great. But man, they could afford the lifestyle. And he's telling me that he envies me. And that stuck out to me even to this day. I can't believe that somebody like that would envy me. And so the last point that we go to is make giving a priority. And so this is where we bring in the offering, and so we'll start passing around plates. It's not what we do. Not what we do, okay? But make giving a priority. Make giving a priority. And so one of the questions that we ask is each month I give a percentage of my income to a nonprofit organization, and 40% of you, this is actually an increase from the last time I saw this number, so that's great. But 40% of you say, yes, I do, and 60 say no. And man, I would have been in this 60 category. I was giving, but not much. I mean, I was a tipper. I would just tip the church. Hey, great job. There you go. And so that's not healthy at all. And so what we found out in doing some statistics and research is some of these organizations found out, hey, what is the average per income that somebody gives of their income? And it's shockingly low. In fact, where they bifurcate between secular and religious, and what they found out was that the secular world, so those who don't say I'm a member of a church or religious institution or religious body, the secular world actually gives more than the religious. But on average, it's about 1.8% of total income. That's crazy. And so we wonder why there's so many needs in this world, and we're trying to keep for ourselves. And so some of the things that I have to go through are these verses here. And so number one is recognizing that it's a stewardship mentality. It's not mine. The resources that have been given to me, that have been entrusted to me, are not mine. That's a radical change in how our society and how our culture today tells us, is that you earned it, you deserved it, it's your talents, it's your ability that has got you these resources, and I bought that lie hard. And that's what I made all these decisions. It was dumb decisions, and I still make them today because I can be prone to wonder. And so I have to get people in my life to tell me this. And so 1 Chronicles 29, 11 through 12, I won't read it, but the summary is, hey, everything is yours, Lord. Power, wisdom, might, wealth, everything is yours. Number two is not under compulsion. And so I would use this as, man, I'm not cheerful. I'm so sad. I'm so angry right now. I'm not going to give, right? This verse here says, the Lord loves a cheerful giver. And I'm like, I'm not cheerful right now, so therefore I'm not going to give. I would use the scripture. I'm being biblical. Don't chastise me. But the problem was until I started giving, which is why you go back to the plan and we say, hey, give something. It's just releasing the power over that money can have over you, is give something. And once I started doing that, man, my wife and I, it's like a 180. We love giving. in giving to things that we believe in and support. And we have been blessed by so many. We could not have done our adoption had others not given to us, both financially, time, etc. And so we're so thankful we've been blessed by it. And so number 3 is out of sacrifice or sacrificially, and that's the parable of the widow and the talents. All right, so what we're going to do is watch a quick video, and then we'll finish up. And what I think that this video does well is many times when we're going on the Amazon or we get an email saying, hey, buy now, here's a sale, or we walk through the mall, we're looking for something like we believe money can buy us happiness. Even though we say it doesn't, we believe that too often. I believe that too often. If I just had this one thing, it will buy me happiness. And so what I want to show you is a video of somebody giving and the joy that it creates from that.
I had an accident and my hip was broken in so many pieces. I have 2 rods in my hip.
She's an angel among us. If you watch her in the bread company, everyone comes in to see Catherine.
You know, we sell the bread, but I feel like there are some people who specifically come with prayer requests, and I go pray for them.
One day when we were sharing, she said she was in need of a different car, that her car was needing expensive repairs.
I had been saving money, but I knew it wasn't enough, so I knew I would take a few years to save for it.
So a couple months later, I went in and I said, Catherine, how's your car fund coming? And she said, I gave it all away. And I looked at her and she said there was a widow in need, and I gave her the $5,000.
I struggled a lot when I gave that money. And I said, I feel okay, but do you think I did the right thing? I mean, I cannot give what I don't have, so I just gave what I had.
I was shocked, and so I come home and I tell Pete that we needed to help Catherine with her car fund. He looked at me and he said, no, I think we need to buy Catherine a car. And I said, okay, great. Pete called Scott and said, do you know Catherine at Great Harvest? And he said, yes, he did. Pete said, well, we'd like to buy her a car. He asked Pete, do you want to use your new car? And it just hit him right in the face. Why would he ask me that? Of course I would want a used car. That's good enough. He just paused for a moment and he said, I want a new car. And he said it was silent on the phone for a few seconds. And Scott said, whoa, I want to help. And so he pitched in some.
So she came to the bakery and she asked me, if you were to buy a car, what kind of a car would you like? I said, Debbie, I'm not really planning to buy a car, but she said, oh, just tell me.
And she said, I'd like a SUV, cruise control, and she said, I'd like a light color. And we called Scott, and he said, I think I've got the perfect car. So Pete said, can we deliver it tomorrow? So we have the bread company owner and his family, Scott and his family, and our family. And Catherine sees us all coming in, and she's just all excited to see everyone.
And I went to give them hugs, and I said, what's Pete doing here? I didn't have the biggest idea. When I went out,
and so we walked her over to the car. We said, Catherine, this is your new car.
so I said, for me? This is for me? I said, oh, I knew God had many cars, but I didn't know He had a new one for me. So God had new cars for me.
We all stood there in tears as we saw the joy on Catherine's face, and we got to be a part of it. And the joy of that was unbelievable.
So right, but it was such an excitement to drive it.
We told Catherine that we would like this to be confidential. But I kept running into people who would say, I heard what you did for Catherine. It wasn't even us, it was Catherine. It all started with Catherine giving of what she had to a widow to help her, and it just continues on. Generosity begets generosity.
We don't give in order to receive. We give because it's the nature of Jesus Christ. He gave us his life. So we have the DNA of Jesus Christ of giving. Yeah, so this is one story I will never forget in my life.
So I love this because we were affected greatly by people's generosity. Our kids who you saw at the very beginning, we were blessed through adoption and these twins. And we couldn't have done it had people not given to us. And so I would be doing you a disservice if I were to leave tonight and not share you the greatest gift of all. Because my son, who I love, if I had to give him up for you, I wouldn't do that. And that's tough for me to wrestle with. But I can tell you that God did. He gave his firstborn, Jesus, for us. So this craziness that I talked to you about of how terrible of a husband I am, of how too often I view resources as a method and tool to build my kingdom and to get what I want in life, that's all been forgiven because of what Christ did on the cross for us. And so for you guys here tonight, finances has a lot to say about the gospel, because when Jesus died, he said tetelestai, which means it is finished. It means the debt is paid in full. And so for you guys tonight, if you don't know who Jesus is, talk to your table leaders, because that's the biggest gift you can get tonight, that you can receive. All you have to do is receive it. And so the question, or the last thing is, many people ask, hey, how do I remember this? How do I remember all these things that you talked to me about? And so there's an acronym that we created. So if you go back through and look at each one of the blanks and you just write out the first letter of each of it, the acronym is CTF, PCI, BGI. And so that way, as you walk around, you can recite themselves to yourself. So just like Deuteronomy 6, right? We're supposed to write them on our frontals. And that's the same thing here. So Lance.
Check. Oh, there we go. Now I got Mike. All right. CGI, something. I can't remember.
You'll get it one day.
Okay. It's good. We'll figure it out. Hey, Caleb, thanks for sharing with us. Hey, at this time, we're going to enter into a time of Q&A. And so some of you have texted some questions in that I've put on here. We used to set out 3x5 cards on the tables. And what we found is the same questions came up class after class after class after class, okay? And so we'll address some of those with you. It's kind of a rapid fire with Caleb. He'll answer, quick, right? I mean, that's what you do.
Absolutely.
You're spot on. And so here's the deal, Mr. Dean. Did you disclose the Beanie Baby obsession with your wife before you got married?
Yes.
Okay.
That's quick, right?
Good. Yeah, no, that was really quick. Yeah. So that was disclosed.
It
And so when we
was.
talk
She
about
still said yes.
yeah, when we talk about sharing your past, like that's how dark it can get, right? And so it's tough. And if you want more on that, there's actually a book called The Great Beanie Baby Bubble: Mass Delusion and the Dark Side of Cute. So it's at Amazon if you want to check it out.
Great
so some of
read.
you have been gripped by Caleb's story here of Beanie Baby just delusion. So anyway, first real question for you, Caleb. Should we merge bank accounts? And if so, when?
Yeah, so definitely merge bank accounts. And what I would say is, as soon as possible, once you get back from honeymoon, not before you get married. And it's really hard. So if you go back to point number one of the verses there is Matthew 19:6. The two are now one. And so it's really hard for you to be one if you have separate bank accounts. It's really easy to hide stuff. I had a friend who, that's how they live their lives. The wife's salary got deposited in her account. The husband's salary got deposited in his. And they just paid bills out of each one. And before you knew it, there was a gambling problem and nobody knew about it. And so again, to become one, merge accounts, encourage you to talk as the wedding becomes closer and closer, is to talk, what bank do we go with? It shouldn't be a huge knockout fight about this, right? But what bank, and then trying to make an appointment with that in advance and knowing what you need to bring, because there's nothing more frustrating to go to someplace to get all the facts. So go back to point number 3, is you show up wanting to merge bank accounts, and they say, well, where's your marriage license, and do you have your driver's license? And you think, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, and now you have to wait for another 5 months before you can get back in, right? And so the point is set up a meeting and do that soon after you get back.
Good. Hey, is it a good idea to buy a house?
Yeah, so we have a house, and we love our house. We don't like the cost of our house, so we wish that was not existing. But we just had a hailstorm go through our neighborhood. We weren't far away from the Wiley area, so those who affected by Wiley, I'm truly sorry about that, because the hail was bad for us, and we just re-roofed our house. And so we have insurance that'll help out with that. But man, again, that's another $2,500 that we have out. And we just replaced our HVAC, and so that's $5,000. We just replaced our fence because it blew over with the windstorm. And we live in an HOA and love HOAs, don't love HOAs. And so they require us to replace our fence at a certain level. And so as a result, that was another, several thousand that we had to do. And so it just adds up. And so we love having a house. We don't regret our decision at all. We love having a house where our kids can go and play and make memories and all this stuff, but there is a substantial cost to owning a house. And too often we can make a decision thinking that this is a great thing for us. And so what I would encourage you to do is, 1, buy a home if you were to do that on your own or on one salary, not on both incomes. Number 2 is, if you are going to take out debt, which most people do these days, again, debt is so normal in today's culture and society, is I would encourage you to go the least amount in years. And so like a 15-year note, don't do an option or an ARM or any of those things. And then number 3 on that is, don't buy what the mortgage or the lender is telling you, here's what you can afford. Always bring it to trusted counsel, because they may say, yeah, you can absolutely afford a $300,000 home, when that's not so much the case whatsoever. There are so many hidden costs into owning a home. And so what I would say is, be wise. Enjoy apartment living or renting a duplex or renting a home, because there's something freeing as you walk around and you see a crack and it's not yours, and you just go, I don't care. It's the landlord's, and that's fine. That's foundation.
Dial them, man.
Hey,
Call
there's
them.
Bugs. Come take care of it, right? Whereas here, you're the owner of it. So, anything
That's
you
good.
want to add?
No, I think just one of the things we do a class here called Expecting Parent Class. And a lot of times there's couples who come to that class who now are at a stage where there's a child coming into their world. And a lot of these moms are going, man, I don't really want to work, but I have to work. Well, talk to us about that. Help us in the process. Well, because the house we took on we both have to continue to work to stay here, and we don't want to move. And so, you just realize like there's decisions that you're going to make early on in marriage that are going to then impact you further down the road in scenarios that you can't even really picture or fathom. And so just processing that, bringing other people into the equation, I think is huge. What about when it comes to buying or leasing a new car? Is that a good idea? Bad idea?
So for us, I'll tell you what we do personally, and then I'll speak to that question. So we buy cars used, and we don't take any loans out on cars. We just drive it until it dies or whatnot. And so there's something freeing about buying a used car when you pull into a parking lot. So we bought a minivan for our kids. It was used. It had
your kids? You bought a car for your kids?
Oh, yeah, we did. They drive.
Okay, yeah.
So for my wife to drive with our kids. And so as a result, it had dents already in it. I mean, we paid to have it pre-dented, really, right? That's what we look at it as. It's an investment. So when we pull into a parking lot and somebody's shopping cart hits and puts another dent, we're like, God bless you. That is so great. Have a great day, right? Because we don't care, truly. And so there's something freeing when you don't have to worry about, I just bought a brand new car, it is spotless, and then now you have a dent in it and you're aggravated. And so what I would say is don't lease. That's just my own opinion and advice. There are people that will come to me probably even after this and say, leasing makes so much sense, it's a good deal. And I say, great, let's have a good discussion and talk about it. And then we can choose to disagree. But leasing never ends up, the people that I've talked to, being a good deal for anybody. The other thing is buying a new car. It's never a good idea to buy a depreciating asset, to take a loan out on a depreciating asset. And so that's where I would say, if you can, buy used and pay cash with that. I know that seems like a lot. You're like, well, I can't do that. Well, then save, make a plan, etc. But just use trusted or counselors around you to answer that question too.
Good. Okay, so you talked about this whole personal line item in your budget. What are some examples of some of the things that you'd pay for? I know you talked about shoes, haircuts, things like that. What's more examples there that you would put in that category?
Yeah, so for me, each month I get resources that, hey, this is how I can use them whatever way. So that's meals out. So if I'm at work and I want to go out to eat for lunch, that comes out of my personal, what we call personal. My wife, knows where resources go because we share the budget. We have everything updated on our phones and other devices. And so she knows immediately, and it's not she's keeping tabs, but she has full disclosure in that. And so for her, we give her, I put in more money, or I put like, hey, I'm funding you. No. So we've agreed to let her get more each month because she'll go out sometimes with friends with the kids, and she needs more in order to feed them because we got to feed those kids, right? And so as a result, that's what goes into that. Sometimes it's fun stuff. I love music, so I pay for Spotify, and so that goes into my fun account. So anyways, that's what goes into personal.
It's good. All right. So as we kind of transition into giving, do we have to give 10%, like a tithe?
No. No, you don't.
Okay. Yeah.
No, you said.
All right. Yeah. Let me see. All right. So multiple.
Yeah. So to answer that question, no, 10%. So tithe means 10%, and if you go back to Old Testament, and you add up all of the free will offerings, the worship offerings, the sacrificial offerings, everything that went into that. So some of the statistics that I've read would say, hey, that's anywhere from 28 to actually 40%. So if you take that and you go, whoa, okay, 28 to 40%, that's a lot of money, right? So too often we think just 10%, hey, I'm just going to check the box. And so the real question that we should be asking is, not how much we should give, but how much should we keep to use just for us? And then the rest is what should we be doing to deploy that for other uses. And so the New Testament calling, as we talked about in point number 8, which you have the verses up there, is the stewardship, giving not under compulsion, and then sacrificially. So it's a much higher calling. You can go to 2 Corinthians 8 as well, 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, and look in those areas as well.
It's good, man. Thank you. All right, so if we have multiple debts, which one should we pay off first? You talked a little bit about debt snowball, but...
Yeah. So use the debt snowball spreadsheet, or the most awesomest spreadsheet that will go out after this class. not literally after this class, so don't be looking and waiting at your email, clicking refresh, but use that spreadsheet to help you plan. What we would say is pay off credit card debt, especially high interest credit card debt first, but then you may be faced with the fact of, well, hey, I only got $200 on this one and I have $10,000 on this one. Which one should I pay off? And that's where I would say, well, do you want to gain momentum and pay off this balance first because the interest on that balance may add up over time, so on and so forth. So you just have to, I would say, use that tool, the spreadsheet, to help you understand the payment schedules and what that would look like for when you'd be debt-free. And then I would talk to somebody. Talk with your table leaders. Talk with others who have been and walked down the paths before you on how we should do that. Because you can either get quick hits and momentum to pay off this debt, or you can tackle the highest balance first. But use that, and I wouldn't get faced with the time value of money dilemma, meaning, hey, if I do this here, then I could save this by this time. Just, hey, don't get caught up in that psychology. It can almost paralyze you. Instead, just make a plan and move forward in that plan.
Okay, so if you are paying off debt, say in this room there's people paying off debt,
Yep.
Should you give and save?
Yeah, great question. I would say yes. Many people, that's shocking. They're like, well, that's such a church answer. But what I would say is really, you just have to be asking the question, like, these aren't resources. What I believe is the resources aren't mine to begin with. So what's the best way to steward and use those resources? When I was younger, I would convince myself that, hey, God wants me to be debt-free. So I'm just going to get debt-free, and who cares about the why I got in debt, and then I'm going to start paying off debt, and then, oh, hey, look, squirrel, let me go get this over here, and now I'm in debt again. And so it's just this perpetuation of I'm always in debt. And so what I would say to you is get creative. Figure what you can take out of your budget to continue giving while paying off debt on that.
That's good, man. So what if we can't agree on how much to give, save, spend? What do we do then?
So that's where point number 2 is surround yourself with trusted advisors. Trusted counsel really helps. Because if you aren't surrounded with others who we would just say would counsel you from a biblical worldview, or somebody that's going to not look at it as, hey, if I sign you up for this product, or if you invest here, you can make this return, and this is way better for God's kingdom, so on and so forth. Like, what you want to do is talk to somebody that can guide you with wisdom and scripture on how to view resources and how to allocate resources. I'd also encourage you to check out MoneyWise, which is a class provided by Watermark that goes through each one of these topics that we've talked about tonight in much more detail. It's a great program for you as well, but it's you just need to have a rational conversation and really lay out, okay, here are some of the needs that I want, here's some of the needs that I want, and have a meeting of a mind to agree upon that with somebody with you to help guide you and counsel you through that.
Good, man. All right, well, we're out of time when it comes to Q&A. I know there's still some questions that are out there. Caleb will kind of sit toward the back and just type away and
like
send
this.
the responses that you need. So we'll get those answers via text for you guys. There's also some of the times the question comes up: should Christians sign a prenup before they get married? And your leaders have a great resource for that. One of the things we do here at Watermark is called Real Truth, Real Quick. And our pastor Todd has addressed that very question in kind of a 5 to 7 minute video. Okay, and so they've got the link to that, and they'll send that to you guys this week, because it is a question. Some of you then will want to process that continued with your leaders after the fact, but that's another one I feel like that comes up quite a bit that we didn't get to tonight. And so, Caleb, thanks again, man.